Sundown, sundown, oh, we lost. Gonulungwa. Neji soji siksadi.
As colonists arrived to the New World in the 1600s, trade was established. Because of the numerous waterways in the southeastern area, the English traders began calling these Native Americans Creek. Although these tribes called themselves Muscogee, the name Creek stuck and was soon used to refer to all tribes in this area. The Creek Nation was a confederacy of several tribes, but it was divided into two geographical areas, the Upper Creek and the Lower Creek. The Upper Creek were located along the Coosa and Tallapoosa rivers, while the Lower Creek were established along the Chattahoochee River. In 1732, General James Oglethorpe was granted a charter from King George II to start a colony for debtors. After Oglethorpe's arrival in 1733, he negotiated a land cession with Tomochichi, the leader of the Creek town of Yamacraw, that resulted in the founding of the colony of Georgia. Years later, Oglethorpe met with the great chiefs of the Creek Nation to confirm the cession. In 1763, after the French and Indian War, the Creek Nation relinquished a sizable portion of land through peace treaties in hopes of stopping encroachment. Although the proclamation of 1763 made it clear that west of the line was for the Native Americans, it was extremely unpopular with the colonists and fur traders, who simply ignored it. Unfortunately, by 1773, more land was lost as inflated debts owed by the Creek to the traders were paid to the state with land.
They gave them credit, and they were actually put themselves into a position of being indebted to them.
During the American Revolution, while many Creek tried to remain neutral, some Creek did side with Great Britain. Once the colonists gained their independence, the relationship between the Creek Indians and the newly independent United States was strained as the young country continued to expand westward. After the Revolutionary War, Alexander McGillivray, a mixed-race Upper Creek chief, who had spent a large portion of his life trying to save Creek lands, signed the Treaty of New York in 1790 with President George Washington. By this treaty, the Creek Nation would give up land east of the Oconee River. Many of the chiefs refused to allow this, but were later forced to cede the land. As the United States continued to grow, the federal government wanted to establish travel routes throughout the land. This required the signing of the Treaty of Washington on November 14, 1805, in which the Creek Nation ceded to the United States certain lands for the making of one such road, the Federal Road. The Federal Road would expand several bridle paths through parts of the Creek Nation. Its development began in 1806. Benjamin Hawkins was instrumental in the formation of the Federal Road. He served as the Creek Indian agent and earned the respect of the Native Americans. He was responsible for helping them learn the white man's ways. The Americans thought that if the Native Americans could learn these new ways, they might not need the large hunting lands. Hawkins negotiated for the postal horse path cut, and as a friend, told a council of Creek chiefs in 1811 that the Federal Road would be opened regardless of their objections. Wagon loads of pioneers came in on this road and settled along the rivers. As more and more settlers arrived to the area, conflicts escalated between those who had an unquenchable thirst for land and the Native Americans who inhabited the land. When the War of 1812 between America and Britain broke out, the Upper Creek again sided with Britain. Tecumseh, a Shawnee leader, visited the southeastern tribes in an attempt to unite all North American Indians against the United States, but the Creek Confederacy was divided. While some of the Creek Indians were willing to adopt the white settlers' ways and keep the peace, others known as the Upper Creek wanted to keep the traditional ways and were willing to fight for them. In 1813, the Creek Indian War began with the Battle of Burnt Corn Creek on July 27th. Between a party of Red Sticks and a force of Mississippi Territory militiamen. As a result of Burnt Corn Creek, fearful settlers built forts to protect themselves, like Fort Mims. On August 30th, 1813, Red Sticks led by Chief Red Eagle attacked Fort Mims, killing almost all 553 settlers. Even family members of the attacking Red Sticks were slain, because they had adopted the white settlers' ways and lived in the fort. While taking refuge at Holy Ground, Chief Red Eagle and his Red Sticks were attacked and defeated by American forces. During the final moments of his defeat, Red Eagle and his horse leaped into the Alabama River and escaped into the wilderness. In 1814, an army force fought a group of Red Sticks who had barricaded themselves at Horseshoe Bend. With the leadership of General Andrew Jackson and the support of some Cherokee and White Stick warriors, the Red Sticks were attacked and defeated.
With Jackson's force, 49 were killed, 154 wounded, and the estimation of the Red Stick Creeks who were killed during this battle ranged between 8 and 900.
A few days after the Red Sticks' defeat at Horseshoe Bend, Red Eagle, also known as Chief William Weatherford, rode into General Jackson's camp and surrendered.
General Jackson, I am not afraid of you. I fear no man, for I am a Creek warrior. But I come to beg you to send for the women and children of the war party who are now starving in the woods. I have done the white people all the harm I could. I have fought them, and fought them bravely. If I had an army, I would yet fight. But I have none. My people are all gone. I can now do no more than weep over the misfortunes of my nation.
It's estimated that over 20 million acres of land were ceded by the Creek nations of the United States government through the Treaty of Fort Jackson in August of 1814.
In February of 1825, 6 years after Alabama became a state, Chief William McIntosh, a mixed blood, and several other Creek chiefs went to Washington, D.C., and signed the Treaty of Indian Springs, which gave the federal government all Creek Indian land in Georgia and almost all the land left in Alabama after the Treaty of Fort Jackson. Other Creek leaders opposed McIntosh's decision, believing that he had broken Creek laws. Some suspected he had taken a bribe from his first cousin, Georgia Governor Troup. McIntosh's execution was ordered. McIntosh's family later described how in the early morning hours of April 30th, 1825, many warriors surrounded the chief's house, shooting more than 100 bullets into him. The United States government held the Creek Nation to the treaty McIntosh had signed. Later, in 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which would remove Native Americans from their southeastern homelands. This included the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, and Cherokee. Finally, in 1832, the Creek leaders were pressured into signing more treaties. In exchange for the loss of their land, they would receive land in the Western Indian Territory that later became Oklahoma. The Treaty of 1832 promised the Creek 5 years of grace, but that provision was violated.
So many cases there was trickery where Indians were cheated out of their land. Either they got somebody drunk and had them sign out the land to them, or people came in and took the land.
As areas opened up, more and more people traveled along the Federal Road. Post riders, stagecoach travelers, freight wagons, traders, the many pioneers searching for a new start, as well as the Creek on their way to the new territory. Fort Mitchell, a stockade and supply base, erected by General John Floyd during the Creek War of 1813, was located along the Federal Road, about a half a mile from the Chattahoochee River. Because of its location along the Federal Road, Fort Mitchell was destined to play an important role in local history. In 1836, Fort Mitchell became one of the principal gathering places for the forced removal of the Creek Indians from their homes along the Chattahoochee River. Those who had resisted were brought in irons to Fort Mitchell, Alabama, and marched by the army more than 90 miles to Montgomery. Some were put along river steamboats, which traveled down the Alabama River to Mobile, and eventually to the designated Indian Territory. Weakened by starvation, defrauded of their lands, and swindled out of most of their possessions, thousands of Creek, including some in chains and shackles, made the forced journey to what is now Oklahoma. The United States had obtained almost all of the Creek Nation's land in the southeast, either by bloodshed or by treaty.
Allah is the Muscogee.